Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons canon, and how it is truly 100% unprecedented in any intellectual property, in any narrative, in any story that's ever been told in the history of humanity. You know, you know me, man. I'm always talking to you guys about, just what's going on with Dungeons & Dragons, and I keep saying, hey, Dungeons & Dragons ain't letting anything on the planet, and I'm going to give you some evidence today. There's some very, very strange stuff happening. I want to talk about the on Dungeons & Dragons canon specifically, and I just want to talk. Let's talk this through, man. This is incredible. So, what's prompting this? What's unusual? What's new about Dungeons & Dragons canon? In my humble opinion, Dungeons & Dragons canon just changed again. Okay, in a massively important way. Because of Rick and Morty season 6. Okay, so first of all, this is wild. I forget the year it came out. I think it came out in 2019. I think the Rick and Morty set came out in 2019. Might have been 2018. Incredibly unusual. Truly incredibly unusual. It's one of the most. I'll say it flat out. I don't think there's ever been a more unusual product that had the black ampersand, the red and black ampersand on it. Okay, I don't think there's ever been a product that had the red and black ampersand on it that is stranger than the Rick and Morty starter set, than the Dungeons & Dragons Rick and Morty starter set. First of all, let's get all the way there. I think that thing was a mistake. I think it was an absolutely horrific, abominable mistake and should have never happened, right? It's weird. There's no reason that thing should have jumped the line, right? There's so many things you could connect to Dungeons & Dragons. I would love to see Harry Potter connected to Dungeons & Dragons. I would love to see Star Wars connected to Dungeons & Dragons. I would love to see Nike connected to Dungeons & Dragons. I would love to see GT BMX bikes connected to Dungeons. A million things. Why did Rick and Morty get to jump the line? It makes no sense, right? And it is so odd. And get this, I think Hasbro knows it was a mistake because that thing never got any additional material for it, and it is never talked about from any Hasbro rep ever. It is never even mentioned, right? Very strange. Very, very strange, right? Now, let's just talk all the way there, right? Rick and Morty, one of the creators just got hard canceled, right? Hard canceled. Some kind of behavior issue, whatever, right? Does that matter anymore? It's tough to say. It's tough to say, right? You want to tell somebody they can't be canceled? Go talk to Jonathan Majors. Let's see how that conversation goes. On the flip side, though, James Gunn was hard canceled, and that dude just pretty much was saving. I can't say single-handedly because James Cameron just did $2.2 billion on Avatar 2, right? But he is one of the champions, he is a powerful champion of the entire movie industry, and just telling people, hey, Marvel might not be done, right? Because legit, the crap they've been putting out lately, Marvel's starting to look like DC, just a big pile of suck, right? But Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was amazing. It's one of the best films, definitely one of the best films of 2023, one of the best films of this decade. It was phenomenal, so good it gave me hope again for the DC Cinematic Universe. I actually, before Guardians of the Galaxy 3, my plan was to skip every single garbage DC film that was going to come out, and because James Gunn would not fire everybody and start fresh, I was like, I'm going to skip it all. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I'm like, man, this dude can start, continue, and finish a story, and there's about 3 people in Hollywood who can do that right now, right? So, it's truly very, very unusual. All right, so let's talk about this, right? So what is canon to Dungeons & Dragons? That is one of the most complicated questions in the world right now. And I'm telling you right now, I'm one of the few people in the world who actually understands what the question even means, right? Because you got no idea how complicated Dungeons & Dragons canon is, right? So a little while back, I think it was Jeremy Crawford actually, you know, he didn't say, and nothing beyond this is not, you know, he said, this is canon, right? But he didn't exclude anything, right? And so we know for a fact, right, D&D Canon, the D&D 5e Canon hardbacks are canon, and the starter sets are canon, right? So if it's got, and I'll tell you right now, the biggest clue, does it have the red and black ampersand, right? The 5th edition red and black ampersand. If it does, pretty much, you know it's pretty much canon, right? Like, and get this, I think it's very clear, every single thing that went on screen for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, canon, right? So those we know, like D&D hat, D&D canon hardback, D&D starter sets, canon. That means Rick and Morty is canon, right? In my humble opinion, that's clear as day, okay? It's not up for debate. If you got any evidence that that's wrong, send it my way. I'm ready. I'm looking for it, okay? But I don't think there's any evidence that D&D starter sets are not canon. They're clearly canon, right? All right, and the D&D Rick and Morty starter set ain't some jank little product that, you know, somebody put like that got sloughed off on DM's Guild, man. That thing is hard canon, right? Like it is. I think it's super clear. It's hard canon. The D&D Rick and Morty. So that means Rick and Morty is canon to Dungeons & Dragons. Follow me all the way through, and please correct me if you think anything I'm saying is wrong. All right, here we go. All right, I already did a video on this, right? You could jump on the Wayback Machine and see if you can find it. It's a couple years old at least. But when Space Jam 2 came out, I did a few videos and said, yo, Rick and Morty up in Space Jam 2. Does that mean that everything that was in Space Jam 2 is canon to Dungeons & Dragons? That's a real important question. You want to know why? Lord of the Rings is in Lord of the Rings is in Space Jam 2. Scott, Lord of the Rings isn't canon to Dungeons & Dragons. What now? Lord of the Rings is not canon to Dungeons & Dragons? Where would I find Lord of the Rings? How far do I have to go before I get a connection to Dungeons & Dragons? Magic the Gathering is canon to Dungeons & Dragons. What Magic the Gathering set are they about to drop? I think like a couple days from now. Lord of the Rings, Magic the Gathering, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, yeah. We didn't have to go too far, did we? Right? Like, how many connections do we need before somebody goes say it? Like, you know, like Gandalf straight up in D&D. Like it's pretty clear, right? Like, you know, and this is my point. It's getting ridiculous, right? So Lord of the Rings has multiple characters in Space Jam 2. You know who else is in Space Jam 2? Harry Potter. You want to know who else is in Space Jam 2? Every Looney Tune. You want to know who else is in Space Jam 2? Batman be up in Space Jam 2. Or like, it's like a whole bunch of DC characters are up in Space Jam 2. And a whole lot more, right? Guess what? They just said on Rick and Morty in the show, okay? So the show, Rick and Morty, is canon to Dungeons & Dragons. That's not debatable. There's a starter set for it. You know what they just said in season 6 of Rick and Morty? In the show, Rick Sanchez says that's like a Space Jam reference. Rick Sanchez name checks Space Jam in Rick and Morty, makes Space Jam canon to the Rick and Morty show. The Rick and Morty show is already canon in Dungeons & Dragons. Are you following? Are you following? Are you following? Do you understand? I don't think you do. Catch up. Here we go. Listen to this. Listen to this. You're like, Scott, what's this matter? These are just stories. No! Check that noise, fool. Listen. Listen. You know what's valuable in this world? Gold. I got a bit of it, right? Like gold, right? Physical gold. All right? So if you have, right? If you have physical gold, that's of real value. And you know how people talk about value beyond that? Well, in it's an old show, Beverly Hillbillies. They find oil. You know what they call it? Black gold, right? Bitcoin, right? People made billions. You know what they called it? Digital gold. Value changes. Gold's always gold, right? Oil, massively valuable, considered in the same, discussed frequently in the same breath as gold, right? Bitcoin, gold. Oh, you're laughing, blah, ha, ha, ha. It's still over 20 grand a piece, right? Don't laugh too hard. Right? Bitcoin's still around. So, and I bought and sold that. I got rid of it at the right time. I got out when it was around 60. Like I was like, whoa, man, this is high. So here's the thing, right? What is the value of Rick and Morty making everything in Space Jam 2 canon? Indeed, in my opinion, to me, it's connect the dot, right? D&D, Rick and Morty canon. Everything in Rick and Morty show is canon. They just literally put in the canon of the Rick and Morty show Space Jam. In my humble opinion, that puts every single thing in Space Jam into D&D canon, in my humble opinion. You heard it, right? So what's the value? It's gray gold, right? It is intellectual property. Gray gold. Okay? Gray gold. Yeah, that's new. I ain't never heard that term before. I just brought it forward, right? And that's my point. People don't even have the language to have this discussion with me, right? I'm the only one talking about this. Dungeons & Dragons canon is far more complicated than anybody knows. And get this, I think that Dungeons & Dragons canon is in a very unusual quasi-state that no intellectual property has ever been in before. I'm convinced this is all happening because the creatives know what they're doing, but the suits do not. The suits in Warner Brothers, the suits in Hasbro, right? The suits at Lego, they have no idea what this is, right? And they have almost no possibility of even finding out what it is because they don't care, right? But the reality is you and I need to care, and the reason why is this is gray gold. There's value here, and there's value even understanding it, right? And that's my entire point. Dungeons & Dragons is going places with narratives that you have no concept. You don't have any concept. You do not understand. Dungeons & Dragons is mixing intellectual properties and creating intertwined narratives in a way that nothing on the planet has even been capable of. And the reason why this is happening is no one on this planet other than me actually knows what Dungeons & Dragons is. So we are seeing incredibly strange, unusual value being created that is not even recognized. I bought Bitcoin when it was $600. I sold it. I rebought it. I sold it. I rebought it. Right? I did it about 4 or 5 times. Right? Value is tough to see. Right? And I'm telling you, there is value here. This is gray gold. And I'm telling you right now, the suits didn't even see what happened. The suits didn't, and this is so clear that the suits in these companies have no idea. Disney literally put on television a story that mocked the CEO of Disney, right? It happened on Donald Glover's show. I'm telling you right now, 3 months later, the CEO of Disney, somebody brought into his room and they sat him down and were like, I need to talk to you for 20 minutes to even to relate to you how you were just insulted, because you're not. And there's a good chance they didn't get through that 20-minute meeting because, that CEO had to jet off somewhere on a G6 Learjet. Like, you have no idea what's happening. And I'm telling you right there is nothing on this planet that is like Dungeons & Dragons. Nothing. Right? We are in a very strange space right now. An incredibly unusual space. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. You can put your value on that. What I know is actually valuable is when you get into the comments and send your traffic. Tell me your humble opinion. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.